Welcome to the Business Excellence for Managers podcast, which is dedicated for all of you leaders and executives who would like to continuously improve your business performance. This podcast is sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, the digital training company that cares about your development, your employees' development, and your business performance. You can find the courses under www.wave-bef.com. In today's episode, we're going to focus on what you do most of the day, which is work, and how to always have the energy and the motivation to do great work and be there for your team as a great leader. I'm thrilled to introduce you to my amazing guest, Mustafa Ammar, who is from Egypt and lived on 5 continents and speaks 7 languages. His passions have led him around the world, and he sees himself, just like me, as a global citizen. He helps you make your next career step the perfect fit for you. In other words, Mustafa is specialized in making your work not seem like work anymore. What you do every day should fuel you with energy so you can be healthy and happy. If your everyday work drains your energy and makes you unhappy, then it will have a direct correlation on the quality of your health and well-being. Mustafa has also gone through several career transformations, and he can give you the tools to go through a career transition while keeping stress levels low. He enjoyed success in several fields, including pharmacy and also in global diplomacy, where he was 10 years as a diplomat in China, in Malawi, at the United Nations. Further, he worked in a multinational bank developing their business as an operations investment specialist. Through it all, he stayed focused on living the life of his dreams and not the life others expected from him. He is motivated to show you how to make those transition steps so you can follow your passions with clarity and confidence. In his company named the Passion MBA, they created a step-by-step blueprint for those of you who aspire a career change, and they guide you in a way so that you can avoid taking high risks in your career transformation, maintain your compensation, and create your next big career opportunity. Mustafa and I are convinced that when you work in your dream job, then you will be successful, you will find your life purpose and live life full of energy. In this podcast episode, he will share with you some of the secrets to empower you to be the hero of your own story. I'm thrilled to introduce you to this amazing guest, Mustafa. Hello, Mustafa, and welcome to the Business Excellence for Managers podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Hello, Juan. It's really a pleasure to be with you again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Same for me, my friend.
Thank you. For today, there is a very interesting topic for the management, and it has to do with development. Therefore, for a manager to develop, there has to be 2 things happening. One of them is for the manager to develop their employees, because only then they can also develop themselves. And there's also the piece of the manager really focusing on their own development. Therefore, I'm going to split that in 2 groups, and I will start with the questions for the employees of the manager. And my first question to you is, to be successful as a manager, one needs to be surrounded by successful and motivated employees. What are some of the reasons why you think that some managers hesitate to push their employees to further develop themselves?
Of course, it depends, but there are type of managers, they're not secure enough. They lack a lot of other soft skills around their specialization. They come out from their specialization to assume a leadership role. And with that leadership role, their specialization is not enough. Really need to widen their scope of skills, learn new skills, especially on the soft side. They need to learn about how to manage people, how to motivate people, how to be a real leader, how to listen rather than just give orders. There are a lot of those dynamics. Also, how to negotiate, how to defend your team. There are many, many things. How to talk to the top executive in your corporation. The fact I've seen a lot of those people who come from this specialization after 10, 12, 15 years of experience in their specialization without further education on all the other sides of running a business. And then they start facing those problems because the feeling of I'm not capable enough of running this team, Maybe if I find somebody else with a capacity that I don't have or skill that I don't have, I suppress that person. So being comfortable in one specialization for a while, not learning enough along the journey, I see it in a lot of cases, is one of those reasons. On the other side, if that person is always capable of learning, and learning is the main motivation, that person will not mind working with people who are much better than him, because it's the idea of growing and learning and also growing as a team. Working individually, like, it doesn't work, while learning how to work in team. One of the examples, if you play football, if you play handball, basketball, you learn how to play in a team, that your role is important as the rest, and how to cooperate to get the result out there. Yeah. At the end, teams win, individuals don't win. If you are able to win in a team, you're a winner. If you start, comparing yourself to the rest, pushing other people down, it really doesn't work. It's not sustainable.
Yeah. And at the end, it's a people business, and we can only have a team that is motivated to come to work and to work for us, to work for this department, if they know that we are there to support them, and not that we are there as managers to control them and to be constantly looking behind their back if they're on time. So it's really that they should feel that support, and that they get the empowerment to do the work and to do the things that they are trained to do. Yeah, so that's totally aligned to what you said.
Exactly, because as a leader, you need to win the respect of your team as well, right? Yeah. It's not enough that you use your power, because once you lose that power, you don't have any respect. But if you have that level of respect among your team, and your team look at you as somebody who inspire them, somebody that support them in tough time, somebody that can go out and talk to executive in the company to ask for a promotion for somebody or a pay raise for somebody, then you have your people in your back, right?
Yeah. Correct. And the other good thing, what I have experienced in the past, if you're a manager who can really support your team members to progress and to develop, and if these team members, let's say, leave at some point of time to another department, then there will be enough people who are in the organization who say, I want to report to this manager. I want to be in that team, because we know how good this manager is. At the end of the day, this manager will always get the best people coming towards his direction.
I totally agree with you. I have this in my previous experiences. I was seeing different teams dynamics at the same time. And the teams that with a bit of negative dynamics, you could see the people are escaping from that team.
Exactly.
Are actually leaving. There were a leak in that team. And then look at another team that is building that culture within the team. They are supportive to each other. They go in groups to lobby for a project or for something, that they really have. It's not individualistic. It's not that one of them goes for an individual approach or so. You see people at least in three going together. You feel the difference. In a couple of years, most of the team players wanted to be there in that team rather than another one, right?
Correct. And what signs should a manager be on the lookout for to identify if their employees are happy or unhappy with their development curve? And how does the manager actually know when it's time to develop their employee or even help them to move on?
Well, this is on both sides. I think also this question can be on the employee side, because I think a mistake employees do is they expect their boss to do everything for them, to plan their career, to help them to develop, create a plan. And in most of the cases, not every boss, not every manager or leader do this. You have, as a leader, as a manager, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have politics to deal with in your organization, your corporation. You have to manage your bosses as a manager. You have to manage your team. You have goals to achieve. Too many things. So it's a priority for the individual, the employee, to plan and take initiatives. But then on the other side, as a boss, also unique bosses are the ones who can see things in their subordinates or employees that they don't see in themselves. And I would just give an example, like one of my bosses, which I really like a lot. I worked with him for a couple of months. Then I had to leave. I went to China and worked there. And we met after a year or so, and he gave me a very nice comment. And he said, if we work together again in a big department, I don't need anyone with me. I just need you, because you can do the work, that 6-7 other people can do. I thought at that point that was a compliment. I really thought it's a compliment. And it's like, I didn't see this in myself. You're still in the beginning of your career. There are a lot of self-limiting beliefs, But then at the same time, the guy was saying this. Until 2 years later, I was put in that situation with another boss. And I was working by myself in a very big place. Like somehow everyone for 60 days was away and I was the only one who was working. And I saw that happening.
Yeah.
So I went back and talked to him and I say, this is what you believe in me, and now I'm realizing this. So also having that kind of boss who can see something in you that you don't have is really very powerful, because you can, first of all, give more confidence and trust to a specific employee, a specific subordinates, and then that person can give you much more. You need to learn as a boss how to motivate each person. You cannot deal with the same, with the whole, everybody is in the same way. There are some people who can be motivated in encouragement. Some others you need to pressurize them. Some others you need to give them orders every single day. So you have to be dynamic as a boss.
Correct. And that's that situational leadership, where you know what are the triggers that is really going to motivate each of my employees. Some people are happy if you have a status update every week or every 2 weeks, and other people, they need that you speak with them every day to see what are they doing today, what's the next step, and how can I help you, so that you really have to adjust it situationally for each of your individual employees.
I agree. 100%.
So, Mustafa, once the manager is aware that their employee would like to further develop themselves, how can they support them in this development journey?
Well, I believe development and, upskilling and reskilling should be a continuous process. The idea of having this as part of your promotion, that you just have a course to upskill a bit and learn a bit of skills, is not really sustainable. And unfortunately, in several corporations and organizations, I've seen that was the trend. So I believe the leader or the manager should have a kind of conversation with every single employee the moment they join. And they speak frankly about where they really want to see themselves 5 years from now. That's very popular question. And putting a plan, and also asking the employee to take responsibility, 100% responsibility, to have a plan. Where do you really want to see yourself? You have to take initiatives. You have to plan, let's say, quarterly, a course of learning a new skill here and there, attending webinars, going to conferences, or even in-house learning programs or so. So having that plan and then building and designing your yearly follow-up, I would say, performance with your employee should be based on that. So what is your goal? What were the skills that you really needed to learn? How did you do in that? Did you learn enough? Did you grow enough? Did you get more responsibility? I think it should be continuous. It should be planned by both sides. HR should be involved because there's always a budget allocated to every department. So I think that budget should be very well benefited from, taken care of, because I could see in several departments, most of that money doesn't go and it go back to HR, or somebody just try to get as much of that budget allocation because he'd like to travel around and have webinars, while the others are not taking initiative to learn and grow.
So true. Many times I've seen that scenario as well in other companies, where they usually calculate per employee how much training budget would be available for that employee. But as they know usually that not every employee will raise their hand to say, I would like to receive training. So they say, let's just accumulate that budget and let's use it then later on at the end of the year to balance certain things out that we had maybe spent with other stuff. So that is really, I think, one of the mistakes that should be avoided, so that managers really can motivate their employees and already make a plan of what will their development journey look like and how much budget do we need for that.
Exactly. Including the manager himself, because the manager need to also have this plan for himself and how he or she can grow and continue learning other skills, because that's more responsibility, and the more responsibility you have, the more skills you need to learn.
Yes, so true. And I think that's a good connection to our next section of our questions for today. And that is going to focus now on the manager itself. So therefore, some managers think that they have only limited growth opportunities because their main developments have been already done in the past, and there is only limited room for them for further development. And sometimes I think, well, that is actually a mistake, because not because you're a manager, you cannot take any more courses, you cannot take any more initiative to learn new things. So what is your opinion on that?
Well, that's talking about specialization again. I think That's one of the harms of being a specialist. Because if, let's say, you are an engineer, you work in your department for 10, 15 years, and then now you are assuming more responsibility just because you have been there for enough time to be a boss or a manager, right? Or a DG in your department. And then what happens is you are running the whole department's new responsibilities in the same old way. And the challenge here is that managers don't realize that they need to learn a lot of other skills that they never learned in the past. For a specialist, what you're doing is the same type of work every single day. After some time, 5 years or so, it's very hard to get in touch with a new experience that you learn something new from. It's not only upskilling and on a higher level, but also going vertically and learning about other departments, other responsibilities is so crucial, because as a leader in an organization, you start dealing with other departments, you start dealing with other teams. You have to learn a bit about each one of them in order to manage relationship with them, right? So if I don't understand enough about being an accountant and, reading an income statement or looking at different financial stuff, it's really hard to talk that language. If I don't understand a bit about sales, I cannot talk to the sales team about something that is between us. If I don't understand a bit about strategy, how I would align my operational side to strategy side. So here it comes to a continuous learning every single day. And, the long-sighted enough people or employees are the ones who start learning those early enough. So when the time comes when they are promoted, I think they have more of a vertical approach and more of bird view of things.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. Many times, if I think back, I have seen in other corporations that the person from a team who gets the opportunity to become the next team leader or the next department head is the best expert at that speciality. Yeah. So that means that if you have that expert who's like really good at programming or is really good at doing a specific job, and as they're the best one in the team, they say, oh, then now the manager has left the team, let's put this person as the manager. So the person then has that new role, and they do not know how to lead people. They did not learn yet how to do presentations, how to communicate with head office. So all of these things are still there to develop and to learn.
Exactly. And also on the other side, I see some people who are like very specialized, over specialized in one specialization. They blame the management for choosing somebody else that is not better at what he's doing or she's doing. So what happens is if the other person have more skills, he thinks that he has to be the manager. So it's also about how much you can learn out of your expertise. Then when you get and assume responsibility, you can manage different things.
Correct. And what signs can a manager observe on themselves when they start realizing that it's actually time to move on?
That's a very good question. The challenge with being a manager in your specialization, like that by some time means that you've been there for 15, 20 years. And I think that's very dangerous, because if you stay that long doing the same thing, focusing on, going up to the corporate ladder is a bit risky, because you get accustomed to your comfort zone. And this is a bit dangerous. So staying in your comfort zone too long is a red alert, is a red flag. So I think for me, I would take it from another approach. If you see yourself long enough in that place, you would rather start finding a new thing, like a new challenge, a new responsibility, even within the organization. Because staying long in the same place means that you have less options in your life. So if the time passes and you go up there are a lot of politics up there. So not everybody is able to go. You have different layers of leadership, and then executive, management is very small number of people, and it's super competitive. So you have to be good at different things, including politics, inside the organization. Right. So the question I would ask managers at that stage is how you can diversify your options, how you can be more in control over your destiny, especially that normally when you get to late 40s, early 50s, somehow you run out of options. Running out of options means lack of opportunities around. You are locked somewhere in your organization. Your destiny is always controlled by somebody who is above you, because if you're out, you're out. Your ability to learn new skills is a bit diminishing with age. So it's good to ask that question a bit early in the process, like how to be more in control over the process, whether to create a side hustle or learn another skill out of your expertise, or create a hobby, move somewhere else, or start a small business while you're having what you're having. So create more options will give you more clarity of the next step.
And I think a lot of managers have sometimes the hesitation to think about moving on because they do not want to burn the bridges. They think if I start moving on, then maybe I will have some enemies within the organization. Maybe they will be angry at me because I did not want to continue as a manager in this area. So that's like a very delicate path to take, because you still want to be in good contact with all the other managers in the organization.
I totally agree. And I don't advise anybody to burn all the bridges with your previous organization or corporation. It's good to have good relationship with everybody. Even if you were in a toxic team, you were in a toxic boss, all of this is understood. But then also, it's very smart not to create enemies. It's very smart to leave in a very good way. It's very smart to decide when to leave. It has to be your decision, because when it's not your decision, you are giving the lead to somebody else to decide your destiny. So you really have to plan that exit if you have it. And then it's always smart to, have good relations. I still talk to my bosses 20 years ago. I still talk to my bosses in my different industries because it's nice. It's a good thing to have good connections and good network with everybody. So I don't advise to burn any of those bridges. Keep them. Even if you leave to a new industry, you keep that connection and that contact with everybody as much as you could. Yeah.
Correct. So that brings us to the next very interesting question, which is about your book, which you wrote. And your book is called Time to Move On. Could you tell us how that could help middle management and senior management with further advice and tools to move on?
So this book is I believe it's the product of suffering the hard way, learning how to bust all these myths. So, we grew up in school, university, learning that the only way to succeed in life is to stick to one career, right? As we were saying earlier, get promoted, keep that expertise, until the last working day in your life. Learning a bit how to build an open mindset, and then when a new opportunity is coming to me, I explore it. It opened my mind to new other world. And now with my experiences, whether moving from a pharmacy to diplomacy to banking and then business, different stuff, I see the world from a different view. So I thought I really have to write this book, because when people believe in those myths, it's very hard to change. But once you start learning how to unstuck yourself, how to bust those myths a bit one by one, it's easier for you to change. So let's say, for example, if I learn there is another way to succeed in life, which is not being a specialist, being a generalist or a polymath or a career shifter, as I call it, then why not? This is not risky, It's like, actually, I'm elevating myself vertically somewhere else. For mid-level managers, I have seen that a lot. Also in terms of executive, they think it's too late. Oh, no way. It's too late to change. I cannot change now. So if you learn that it's a myth, it's too late. And I'm giving you, whether through stories of people who are able to change at different times, whether it's research, whether it's supported by different arguments, very logically, then you learn it's never too late. I also hear people who spend a lot of time in one industry and think, leaving this industry and this career is a sunk cost, which means I invested a lot of time and effort in growing here, and then now I'm going to leave all of that and start somewhere else from zero. I'm proving to you that all those skills are transferable to all the other industries that you want to have, every single skill. I would give you an example that I learned chemistry for 5 years in university. And that helped me to read and write Chinese very easily. So, in many different cases, you can develop a skill and transfer it to a new skill very easily. So I think it's actually written for managers, for people who have 10 to 20 years of experience in one career and want to change. Because there are a lot of those myths that they believe in. And once they started busting them, then it's easy to move on.
Wow, that's so powerful. Is there one advice that you could give the listeners today if they're a manager and they know that they have that gut feeling, that intuition that they would like to take the next step? Is there any like tools or any kind of self-questioning that they could do to make them realize, okay, I do need to go more that direction?
I would advise them to start reading out of their expertise. That's the very first step. For me, that means that 50% of your readings should be out of your expertise. Because that's a very practical way to explore your passions. In general, you read about your passions. You read about things you're passionate about. Sometimes you don't know your passions. It's not easy to figure out your passions unless you have a very structured way to know that. But then also the skills you want to learn, the passions that you want to have. If you start reading, a book by a book, you figure out more. And the more you read, the more you know more about yourself and what you really want to do. So if you have 50% of your time, your reading time in something else, you start figuring out what you want to do. I also have my process. I call it the passion blueprint. And the idea of knowing your passions is very, very crucial. So I advise everybody to know their top 3 passions and then know their top or core 3 values, align them together. That's actually a very, very critical stage. And I would just give an idea, just to give a bit of imagination of the process. Imagine that we are driving a car together, across Europe, like let's say for 4,000 kilometers, for example. And I assume we need 3 essential elements along the journey. We need enough gas for the car. We need a GPS with us. And we need a final destination. We need like an address to put in that GPS, right? Without enough gas, we'll stop somewhere in the middle. We'll not be able to continue the journey, right? And without a GPS, even if we have enough gas, we will get lost how many times in the middle? Like, dozens or even hundreds of times in the middle. Maybe you'll be lucky and reach your destination, but very, very long, after you start your journey, and maybe not. And the GPS is very beneficial when you have a final address. If you don't have a final address, the GPS is not, If we try to apply all of this on your career, your life, enough gas means enough passion. If you don't have enough passion for whatever you're doing, you will run out of gas. You will stop somewhere. The majority of people don't know why they are stopping, why they are burned out, why they have a career plateau, why they are not able to advance more in career and learn more. Also, people think, I'm born with my passions and they will keep growing with me. This is not true. We change. We shift, our personality change, our interests change, our passion change. Me and you, Juan, 10 years ago, were completely different persons. 10 years from now, we'll be even completely different persons. If we talk 10 years from now, maybe even our passions will be doing different things in life. I'm sure of this. So learning that your passions shift and learning to be passionately smart with this and shift with that passion is really very helpful. On the other side, your values is your GPS. If you don't know your core values, if you don't put them one by one in front of you and make sure that whatever you're passionate about, whatever work you're doing is helping you to satisfy those values, you will suffer a bit. You will get lost in the middle as getting lost driving your car. And a final destination is somewhere you want to see yourself 5, 10 years from now, an ideal lifestyle you want to live. Let's say we spoke about freedom. If you want to be a financially free person, if you want to be an entrepreneur that have several revenue streams, you have to start somewhere going to that. You have to work something around your passions, satisfying your values, and then going slowly toward that dream lifestyle. If you don't have that dream lifestyle, you make it difficult for yourself to go to one direction, getting to that ideal lifestyle. So I advise everybody to think through this process. Know a bit about your passions, know a bit about your values, have a bit of ideal lifestyle that you want to reach sometime, a few years down the road, and then put these things together. If there are 3 circles, they must intersect somewhere in the middle. And the next career step you want to really focus on is somewhere in the middle between these 3 circles.
Fantastic. That made it so visual for me, and I'm a very visual person, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners as well. So thanks for giving that great explanation.
Thanks, Juan. Thank you.
What services do you offer your clients?
So right now I still have my coaching business while I'm building my tech startup, which hopefully that would help many people to change their careers, find their dream careers. But until now, I still also teach that methodology, the Passion Blueprint. It's a methodology that I created learning the hard way, changing careers. Very, very practical. So I help people in 4 weeks to 6 weeks to know for sure where is the next step. And then once they know where are they heading, the transformation would take a few months, 4 to 6 months, to transform themselves, to learn the new skills, to be ready for the new career.
Perfect. Wow. That is really good because I think a lot of people are scared to do that transition. And that's why they usually stay so long at that specific job or specific company because they don't have somebody who can support them through that transition. And that's really great that you can provide that.
Exactly. And that's why I think the orientation process is a key. You know, if you need to change, you really need to do the orientation in a proper way, because without that orientation process, you don't know much about yourself, what you really want to have, what you really want to do. And then once you meet a challenge or a few adversities along the way, you stop because you really didn't spend enough time on understanding yourself and why you are doing this and why this is important to you. Is it connected to a life purpose, to a value that you want to have, a vision for your life, an impact to have on your society? So it's very important to spend some time on orientation.
Yeah. Excellent. So I have one final question for you today, and that is regarding the topic cross-cultural aspect, because I think it's very important for management when they develop themselves, not to only develop in one direction, in, let's say, in one country, in one culture, but what is the value added that you see when you have managers who have had experience in different cultures and in different countries?
This is a very powerful question because operating in your culture is completely different from going out, an international organization or a multinational company and operating in an international team. So the opportunities for every employee and every manager are endless if you go out of your comfort zone culturally and start operating in, a new culture. It applies also to negotiations. If you are negotiating with another culture and you don't know much about that culture, you're really missing a lot. I've seen a lot of, I would say, words lost in translation, even if they speak the same language, just because that delegation means something, the other delegation means something. So I learned this as a diplomat because you operate in different cultures. You have to spend time on understanding the culture, learning the language. I work in China, I work in United Nations. But then also in banking, we were managing negotiations across different nations. We were working in many countries in Asia and Latin America, in Africa, and the Middle East. So you really had to learn a lot about the other culture when you operate with. Also, as an international bank, you have team is formed from different cultures. So having that depth in understanding different cultures is very unique. So also I spent in my MBA in-depth time, like I had a 1-year project on understanding different leadership styles in different countries and how that is impacting performance of subordinates or employees, So it's very important for an employee, for a manager, to understand how to operate in a multicultural context, how to deal or negotiate with another culture. I ask everybody to, before you travel to a country for a bit of work, before you work with somebody from another culture, read a bit about that culture. Get to know what are the taboos, how to operate, how to talk. Yeah. And let's say if you have a language understanding, a culture understanding, that's another dimension. And the more you learn about other cultures, the more dimensions you have in your personalities. Poor, the people who are not able to learn that, so they see things from one tiny angle and they are missing a lot. I've seen deals in millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that were missed and lost just because people didn't get the cultural aspect. On my side, I could see those things, like just to give an example of a $200 million deal. I was asked by my boss to leave that deal because he didn't get enough how things are run in that culture. And with my understanding to that culture, I spent more time and I was very patient because I know how things are operating in that culture. Luckily enough, in 3 years, it took a bit of time, but we got a $200 million deal and it's beneficial to everybody. So that understanding is really crucial.
Wow, that's so powerful. And I think if I look back at the consulting days, I did find one or two international companies who really put it as part of the management program. They said, if you want to be a manager
Yes.
who's going to become later on a higher level manager, then you have to have at least experience in 2 to 3 countries before you can go a level higher. Yeah, and that's really
I
opening
agree.
their horizon. Yeah.
I agree. It's the toughest thing. You have a manager who never run out of his or her culture, and then have him or her running a multicultural team. Then it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's disastrous.
Exactly, exactly. They do not then speak the same language as their team members. And some team members might
Exactly.
have specific expectations and they will
Exactly.
not be met because the manager doesn't even know that these expectations even exist.
Exactly. And we can definitely have a full episode about this, but just give you an example. Hierarchy is different in every culture. So if you bring somebody from South Asia, the level of hierarchy is different from East Asia, China, Korea, Japan, from the Middle East, from a Latin European country like Spain, Italy, different from Latin America, different from the UK. So hierarchy is different. The way bosses act and operate in different hierarchy is different. So if you work with a French boss, it's completely different from an American boss, from a Spanish boss. Even the idea of giving a feedback is different. So learning that is very comforting because you get to know a bit, translate that missing language and missing message in the middle.
So true. Wow. Yes, you're right. I think that here we could definitely go so deep that we could spend another hour speaking about the differences in cultures and how they have an impact, yeah, and how they are actually. Yeah. For if I think about one manager who comes from the Netherlands, he's very, very direct. If he doesn't like something, he will
100%.
give you straight feedback. They'll say, I don't like it. Please redo it and come back in 2 weeks. And then you're like, many people might feel shocked. They're like, oh my gosh, that's very harsh. But that's the way how they communicate. And for some other people, they're like, I can live with it. I love it when they are direct with me because then I know if I'm doing something right, if I'm doing something wrong, and I can correct my direction. So again, if the manager is from the Netherlands, he needs to watch out. Okay, am I speaking now to somebody who comes from Asia? Am I speaking to somebody
Exactly.
who comes from France? Whom am I speaking to? And how do I
Exactly.
put my feedback in the proper way?
Exactly. And to your point, one of my senior colleagues, and I was working with a lot, he was Dutch, and knowing that early, even before working, made it very easy for me because I know whatever comment is not rude, is not just because of, and that made it so easy for us to work together, to travel together. We did a lot of, business tours in Latin America and several other regions together just because of understanding that. While others didn't accept that blunt, way of doing things, and then you start seeing it from their point of view, from the culture point of view, as a bit too rude.
Yeah.
So they couldn't really cope with it.
Yeah, that's why, again, I think that's one of the topics that is so powerful and so important that one should not oversee if you think about your further development as a manager. Because usually when
Agree.
people think about further development, they think, well, what courses can I take? Let me look into the Google, yeah. But no courses will ever give you that enrichment when you move to another country and start learning about that culture, yeah. And that's already like
Exactly.
20 courses in one, packed in one.
Exactly. And then you build that capacity of once you travel to a new country, your eyes are open like this because you want to see how things are operating. You want to see how people are talking to each other. You want to see how people are behaving. And that makes your life easier because you can cope with that very quickly. You learn what to do, what not to do.
Yeah.
I think what not to do is even more important, than what to do. And then you get friends easily, you cope with them easily, and then you manage your way.
And the beautiful part about it, once you have learned it, suddenly you require more feedback. So you say, okay, if I learned so much just by moving to this one place, what's going to happen if I move again? And if I move again? And then somehow you get really hungry and you get always like very motivated and you see the world in a totally different perspective. And then you see the world as a great place where you can be here and learn.
Totally agree. And this is one of the most interesting subject. I never talked to somebody about this and trying to explore like if a Chinese person that his or her boss were British. So when I just started telling them, why their boss were acting this way, they start, yeah, you're right. Now it makes sense to me, So it's very interesting because it's beneficial to life if you're traveling for leisure, for tourism, or even beneficial for your career. And it's always my advice to people who never work out of their cultures, their countries. You have to get out, at least for a year. Yeah. Go out of your country, work in an international organization, or work with another company, work with another culture, even as a freelancer or so. Because you're going to learn much more in 1 year than 10 years, operating in your culture.
So true. Wow. Thank you so much, Mustafa. That has been very enriching. And I'm sure it triggered quite a few new thinking patterns for the listeners. And where can the listeners find you if they want to contact you?
Sure. So I have my website, thepassionmba.com. They can also find on it the 10 top mistakes to avoid when planning their career transition. Also, my personal website is Mustafa, Mustafa, Ammar, Ammar.com. They can find an excerpt from the book. They can find a few things about my coaching services there.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mustafa. I will be putting all of that into the show notes so that they can just click on the link and they can have direct access to you and to your pages that you've just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan. It's always a pleasure.
Same here. It's always a pleasure, and hope to see you soon again, Mustafa.
Thank you so much, Juan. Thank you.
What a great conversation. I hope this episode with Mustafa has inspired you to think further about your employees' development needs and also where you stand with your own career development. From a scale from 1 to 10, it would be great to reflect on where you and your employees stand with the satisfaction level at work. This will have a direct correlation to the success you have in your business goals. In the show notes, you will find the links on where to find Mustafa and how to contact him. On his website, you will also find an interesting quiz you can take and see what comes out. Think about how many years of your life you will be working. You deserve to put your energy and efforts into something that is fulfilling for you, as this will be one of the factors that will make you a more radiant and energized leader. This podcast was sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, where we believe that investing in yourself and in your employees is the best investment. Therefore, if you are interested in finding out more about courses and certification programs that were designed for you as a manager to further boost your business excellence initiatives, then please go to the Courses for Managers tab in the company website www.wave-bef.com, where we have 7 interesting courses for you as a leader. On the other hand, if you want to further develop your team members and your high performers so that they can bring even more value by learning new skills and methods for solving process issues, then please select Courses for Employees tab on our website. Here you will find 15 courses designed for your employees. In case you already have team members who are certified in any Lean Six Sigma level, then we also have extra courses for them as well. Thank you, stay tuned, and see you in the next episode of Business Excellence for Managers.